Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And in this video, I'd like to discuss a serious, though unsurprising, accusation that either Liz Truss or new Chancellor Kwarteng, or both, may have deliberately devalued our currency, meaning the cost of living rises yet again for ordinary people, just to help some of their wealthy friends become even wealthier. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So essentially, this is our old friend shorting the pound again. We heard enough of this over the Brexit years. But I was wondering in the stream last night, is Liz Truss just adopting the position she is for political gain? Or does she really believe in this very far right-wing ideology that she's now unleashed in direct contradiction to the 2019 party manifesto and therefore without any public mandate at all? Because that's important. I know a lot of people complain that Truss was made Prime Minister by a handful of people who are not representative of the general voting public, but I never made an issue of that. You don't elect Prime Ministers. You elect candidates. You can make an argument that you also elect parties, but you never elect any member of the government, even if that's what you think you're doing when you're voting in a general election, But people do vote for the manifesto. If the party of government makes a radical change to that manifesto without an unexpected event forcing it, it makes no difference if the leader changed or not. The government is acting without a public mandate to do so. If Truss wants to make these changes, she should call a general election now. Not because we've got a new Prime Minister, but because she's thrown her party's manifesto, upon which she got elected, into the shredder. But I am reading more and more about the build-up to the very controversial budget on Friday, and I am moving to a position of believing that Liz Truss really thinks that what she's doing is what she wants to do. I was going to say is the right thing to do, but then you'd have to argue about what she thinks right means. But, I am coming to the position where I think even, let's say she didn't have to rely on support from certain groups on the far right of the party. Maybe she'd still do this anyway. In fact, so extreme was that budget that she set herself on a collision course with her party. Keir Starmer accuses her of casino economics, of gambling with the finances of every household in the country. And indeed she is. She's working on the hypothesis that an economic theory that has been tested by much cleverer governments and failed time and again can succeed just because she's confident in it. But she's making another gamble. She's gambling that her MPs will just sit back and hope that the plan is so insane that it confuses the voters and they elect them back into power at the next election. She's made no attempt to get them on board. It was already clear that she formed her government from MPs who publicly backed her. There was no attempt to balance the party. She's reported to have told Grant Shapps that he would definitely be in cabinet if he'd have backed her. Now, if true, that means she's openly painting a dividing line in the parliamentary party. Not just that she's removed what was seen as her rivals from outside of government, but she's telling them to their face, the reason you're not in government is because you wouldn't back me. Punishing those who backed a rival, but still expecting them to vote for her bills in Parliament. A bold move, because it wouldn't take many of them to prevent her ever winning a single vote in Parliament again. For now, though, she can probably expect them to behave for a little while. Polling indicates that Truss's honeymoon period is still in place. The public are, as expected, giving her time. Despite the unpopularity of the measures in the budget, they're prepared to see what happens with it. This is because the public generally focus on aims rather than means. Far too many voted for Brexit because they liked the sound of the intended aims without ever thinking if it made sense. Too many keep voting Conservative, even though their quality of life keeps going down, because they like the sound of the new set of promises each election. This is what Truss is potentially counting on, that we have to come out of recession at some point, and the slight relief when we do is enough to fool voters into thinking that it was her harsh but necessary measures that did it. It won't dawn on most voters that the economy will still be smaller than when she took over, or the pound worth much less against other currencies. Which brings me on to this latest scandal. This will come as no surprise, but it's still always shocking to read it in a mainstream media outlet because they would not publish it unless they were confident that it's true. And this is in the Times. They're not trying to trip up the Conservative Party. When Kwarteng read out his budget and the pound dropped like a stone, We all wondered, didn't we? We all said there'll be people shorting the pound here, won't they? This is how investors can make a lot of money very quickly by betting on or against a currency. You know, as you'll see it expressed in the papers as betting against the pound. Now, how it works in practice at a basic level, it's a completely mad system to me as a non-investor. Completely mad. I don't actually understand how it works. But the way it basically works is you effectively borrow shares in the currency, like bonds. If you know or strongly believe that the currency is going to fall in value at a particular point during the time at which you've borrowed these shares, what you do is you sell them at the higher price. Okay, you sell them at the higher price. But you don't really own them. They're not yours to sell. So you are going to have to buy them back before you give it back to the lender. But when the currency falls, you then buy it back at the lower price. So you may have sold these for, what was it at the start, $1.12, and then you buy them back at $1.08. Give it back to the lender. It's all fine. There's a little fee charge for it, and you pocket the difference. You spend enough money doing it, that adds up to hundreds of millions potentially. Now, obviously, you as an investor, you might be able to judge the market better than the market itself, and you could speculate with practices like this. But unless you're a genius, it's a gamble. But if you know in advance that the Prime Minister, or in this case, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, is going to announce a series of unexpected measures that will spook the market, you can be confident you'll make a fortune because you know the pound will drop in value. The Times has just published an article that has a lot of interesting insights. This was just one little paragraph in it that just casually reports that a load of Truss supporters were all shorting the pound ahead of the budget statement and made a fortune. And the budget statement did contain some very unexpected policies. We knew it was going to cut taxes, yes, but some of the cuts announced were not known about. Essentially, the implication is that somebody who knew what the surprise announcements in the budget were going to be ahead of time had either leaked that information to investors or at least leaked to investors, we're going to make some announcements that are likely to devalue the pound. Now, that is a suggestion that either the Chancellor or the Prime Minister knew that their statement would crush the pound. Not a lot of people would have known what was in that statement. And this is the thing, that would be bad enough. You know, and they go ahead with it anyway. That's bad enough that you know you're going to make this statement, it's going to devalue the pound in a cost of living crisis. That's bad enough. But to do it in order to make some supporters richer. I mean, this happened at various times during Boris Johnson's time in government as well. An announcement would be made that would devalue the pound, and you'd then discover that several investors close to the government made a load of money. It's quite illegal, of course, and is happening far too often for there not to be criminal investigations. Government statements should never cause a devaluation of the national currency. Government statements are supposed to boost confidence, not crash it. If Truss and Kwarteng really genuinely believed in their measures, they should have explained them to the public and won support before implementing them. That's how good government would work. You bring people along with you. You don't forge ahead into the darkness past all the signs that say danger, quicksand and landmines ahead. You need to explain to people your plan for getting to the other side without hitting the pitfalls. But they have no plan. All they have is an ideology. But they may also be helping people illegally make money out of budget statements as well. That's even worse. You know, it was a budget for the rich, all right, and much more than just a few quid saved in taxes if you were the right sort of rich person. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.